Buckle up, folks, because we're diving into Mushoku Tensei, Jobless Reincarnation Volume 17, where political intrigue doesn't mean subtle whispers in corridors, but rather throwing a dragon god, a berserker wife, and a mudslinging mage at your problems. This isn't your average power fantasy. It's a masterclass in how to stumble your way through a coup while having a full-blown existential crisis. Alright, folks, strap in. Let's talk about the next leg of Rudeus Greyrat's delightful field trip to political upheaval, also known as the Road to Asura. Our boy Rudeus, his sunshine, and hurricane wife Eris, the ever-composed Sylphie, the formidable Ghislaine, and the royal entourage of Princess Ariel are on the move. And thank the gods for small mercies, or in this case, for the teleportation circles of the magnificently dramatic Rudeus. Because who has time for a several-month journey when you have a coup to facilitate? Our first stop is Perugia's floating fortress, the Chaos Breaker, a name so edgy it could slice a diamond. And Eris, our beloved Berserker Sword King, is immediately enchanted. Picture this, a 20-year-old woman, a master of a sword, reduced to the wide-eyed wonder of a child at a theme park, gawking at the view from the edge. It's equal parts endearing and cringe-inducing. Rudeus, our ever so slightly embarrassed narrator, is already bracing for impact, half expecting her to challenge their host to a duel for funsies. But the plot thickens with a delightful twist. Eris, in a move that shocks everyone, especially her husband, has apparently been studying. She's rehearsed. She drops to a knee, offers respectful greetings, and conducts herself with a humility so forced you could use it to forge a sword. Rudeus, the armored dragon king, a man who usually radiates "I tolerate your existence" energy, is visibly pleased. It seems even ancient, powerful beings have a soft spot for a feisty redhead trying her best to be polite. A small victory, but in the grand game of thrones, you take what you can get. Now let's talk logistics, because Rudeus, ever the overthinker, gives us a masterclass on the woes of public transportation in a magical world. Teleportation circles are high maintenance. They need power, specific locations rich in mana, or a small fortune in magical crystals. And of course, the kingdom of Asura in its infinite wisdom, or paranoia, has seen its entire network recently and conveniently destroyed. Coincidence, or the hand of a certain malevolent, godly chess master? Our money is on the latter. So, they teleport to a ruin in a forest near the border, and immediately hit a snag so predictable it's almost comical. The carriage doesn't fit through the door, because why would anyone plan for that? Thankfully, Ariel's attendants are apparently part IKEA assembler, and they disassemble the thing with practiced ease. Royalty, it seems, travels with not just style, but also contingency plans for spatially challenged exits. As they camp for the night, we get a glimpse into Rudeus' existential crisis. The man is dead weight. For the first time, he's in a well-supplied group with competent people, and his signature party tricks, conjuring cutlery and water, are rendered obsolete. He's just a guy. A dangerously powerful guy, sure, but currently a guy with nothing to do but ponder the impending doom and the potential traitors in their midst. And his thoughts are a dark, swirling vortex of anxiety and moral ambiguity. He's eyeing Luke, Ariel's loyal knight, with the suspicion of a man who's been burned by a smiling god before. Is Luke a disciple of the man god? Probably. But here's the kicker. Rudeus doesn't think that makes him evil. The man, God, is a manipulative parasite preying on people's hopes and fears. Luke could genuinely love and want to protect Ariel, all while being subtly guided towards the betrayal he doesn't even see coming. It's a terrifying thought. Do you kill a man for a crime he hasn't committed? For thoughts planted in his mind? Or do you gamble on his inherent goodness and risk everything? Rudeus' internal monologue is a beautiful mess of short-sighted pragmatism. He's worried about his family now. The world 100 years from now, that's a problem for future Rudeus descendants. Sorry, kids. Grandpa might have doomed your world, but hey, he saved his own skin. You can't really blame him. Self-preservation is a hell of a drug. The real meat of the chapter, the secret sauce, comes during Rudeus' first scout duty. He ventures into the spooky forest, and who should materialize from the shadows like a vampire at a goth convention but Orsted himself. The man has a flair for the dramatic, I'll give him that. Their meeting is a masterclass in ominous foreshadowing. Orsted is worried, not about the plan, but about Rudeus. He seems unconcerned, and he's right. Rudeus has run the simulations in his head. He's prepared for the North Emperor, Corbett, the so-called Peacock Blade, a master of unpredictability and surprise attacks. He's mentally ready for the fight. But is that confidence or dangerous complacency? Orsted, playing the role of an anxious mentor, even slips him some king-tier healing scrolls, the magical equivalent of a full-blown resurrection potion. Just in case you lose a limb, he says, probably without a hint of a smile. The most crucial piece of intel, however, is about the man, God's disciples. Orsted casually drops a bombshell. The man, God's control over a disciple, lasts only until his foresight of their future becomes clear. Once a major turning point is reached, his influence wanes. This is huge. It means they aren't dealing with permanently corrupted agents, they're dealing with temporary puppets. This changes the entire moral calculus. You don't necessarily have to kill the puppet. You just have to survive the puppet master until the strings are cut. Their destination is the Red Wyrm's upper jaw, a perfect geographical choke point, and an even more perfect ambush site. It's the kingdom's designated make. People, disappear zone. Orsted is so sure of an attack there that he has a plan B. If Darius doesn't send assassins, Orsted will fake an attack using summoned monsters. Now that's commitment. It's a false flag operation orchestrated by a dragon, god to manipulate a princess into taking a safer bandit-infested route. You know, just another Tuesday in this world. So, the first day ends, the camp is quiet, the fire is dim, but the tension is palpable. They're walking right into a trap, one they're fully aware of, orchestrated by a god they can't directly fight, waiting for a peacock-themed swordsman to try and murder them. And Rudeus? He just goes to sleep. Because when your life is this insane, you learn to catch rest wherever you can. The calm before the storm has never felt so deceptive. Well. Gather round because we've finally arrived at the main event, the Red Wyrm's upper jaw. This isn't just a scenic route, folks. It's the kingdom's premier location for making political problems quietly disappear. And our party is the star attraction. The journey through the valley itself is a moment of eerie calm, a perfect setup for the storm. Rudeus, our ever-relatable protagonist, is having a moment of introspection. He sees a merchant caravan and is hit with a wave of nostalgia for his edgy, lonely heiress. Left me phase. Ah, to be young, miserable, and convinced you'll die alone. Now look at him, sandwiched between two wives on a horse, his hands developing a mind of their own and instinctively groping selfies. It's character growth, I suppose. From existential dread to casual public fondling, he's living his best life, and the ghost of his past self would probably just sigh in resigned, envious confusion. But the mood shifts the second they reach the forest's edge. This isn't just any forest, it's a graveyard. Ariel, the princess with the weight of a kingdom on her shoulders, lays flowers on an unmarked stone, a memorial for the loyalists who were slaughtered here years ago. It's a powerful, silent scene. No grand speeches, just a simple act of remembrance that screams volumes about the stakes. This place has already claimed lives for her cause, and it's hungry for more. You can feel the party's collective spines stiffen. The horseplay is over. It's time for war. The night before the push, they go over the battle plans. It's a solid setup. Eris and Ghislaine as the unstoppable blender at the front, Sylphie as the versatile midline support, and Rudeus playing the role of a paranoid, all-seeing Sekti camera in the back. The real genius, though, is the decoy. Ariel's attendant, Clean, is to be a body double. It's a classic move, but a brilliant one, giving the princess what Rudeus so eloquently calls 2 bonus lives. You have to appreciate the video game, logic applied to a life, or death political assassination. Let's just hope they don't have to use that extra life. The next morning, they march into the green, gloomy jaws of the trap. And oh, what a predictable trap it is. Orsted, the ultimate spoiler, has even left them a marker, a $sign carved into a tree, which is either a cryptic signal or a commentary on the cost of their ambitions. The ambush is underwhelming at first, a wall of silent, faceless soldiers. It's almost cliché. But then the real entertainment begins. Enter the first act. Why Taya, the North King. And what an entrance it is. Imagine a halfling who's polished his armor to such a blinding sheen he could signal ships at sea. He's a walking, talking disco ball with delusions of grandeur, challenging Ghislaine to a duel. And his technique? It's gloriously, hilariously cheap. He's not a master swordsman, he's a master of reflective surfaces, using his gauntlet to flashbang Ghislaine every time she tries to swing. It's the kind of low-tier strategy you get reported for in an online game. Ghislaine, a sword king, is being utterly neutralized by a pocket-sized prism. You can't help but facepalm. Meanwhile, Eris, the glorious berserker she is, completely ignores the concept of a formal duel and proceeds to mow down the enemy ranks like she's playing a hack and slash game on easy mode. She is a force of nature, and Selphie is the brilliant tactician cleaning up behind her. It's a beautiful, chaotic dance of destruction. But Rudeus is stuck. He's under strict orders not to cast a single spell, because the main event, the North Emperor Obercorbett, is a specialist in killing distracted mages. So Rudeus just has to stand there watching, his hands metaphorically tied, as Ghislaine gets poked and prodded by the shiny halfling. The internal conflict is delicious. Does he follow the plan and risk Ghislaine? Or does he break protocol and reveal his hand? In a moment of beautiful, pragmatic genius, he chooses a third option. He doesn't launch a fireball or a lightning bolt. No, he summons Mud, a mud rain spell. It's undignified, it's messy, and it's absolutely perfect. It turns the battlefield into a slip and slide, and most importantly, ruins with Taya's impeccable polish. The disco ball is extinguished, and Ghislaine immediately goes from being stunned to severing his shoulder. It's a victory won not by overpowering might, but by sheer brilliant annoyance. And then, in the moment of Rudeus's triumph, the real threat makes his move. Obercorbett, and he doesn't descend from the trees or teleport in a blaze of glory. Oh no! He emerges from a hole in the ground. Oh, this flamboyant peacock of a man, with his rainbow coat and satellite dish hair, has been hiding in a gopher hole behind them the entire time. The sheer absurdity is breathtaking. What follows is a masterclass in why Auber is so dangerous. He's not just strong, he's a trickster, a ninja, a walking bag of cheap tricks. He tries to blind Ghislaine with pepper spray. He spends oil and lights it on fire. And when Eris finally seems to have cut him in half, he reveals it was just a log with a magical cloak, a classic substitution jetsuit. He's less a swordsman and more a chaotic evil magician, and Rudeus is completely out of his depth, trying to counter this nonsense. The most telling moment? After all his flashy maneuvers, his grand exit isn't a devastating final attack. It's a tactical retreat. He just leaves. He recognizes that the element of surprise is gone, and that this particular blend of sword kings and quagmire mages is too much to handle. He's not here for a heroic last stand. He's here to win, and he'll try again later. That makes him infinitely more terrifying than a straightforward brute. The chapter ends not with a bang, but with a chilling, quiet revelation. As they loot the bodies, they find the crest of the Milbots region on the armor of the slain soldiers. This is the territory of Pilemon Notos Grey Rat, a grey rat, part of Rudeus's own extensive and treachery-prone family, and a supposed ally of Ariel. The betrayal is now confirmed, and it's coming from within the inner circle. Mook's pale face says it all. The road to the capital isn't just dangerous because of monsters and hired emperors, it's poisoned by the very nobles they're trying to court. So, they survived the first ambush. But the real battle, the one of politics and betrayal, has only just begun. And honestly, after seeing Auber's bag of tricks, you have to wonder if the straightforward sword fight wasn't the easier part. Well. The dust has settled after our little skirmish in the woods. And what do we find? Not a moment of peaceful rest, but a campfire session dripping with more tension and suspicion than a royal court intrigue. Welcome to the aftermath, where the real battle of wits begins. Our boy Rudeus has successfully herded the group away from the obvious death trap at the border fortress. But his brilliant plan to use bandit smugglers, it's landing with the grace of a lead balloon. The main opposition, none other than Luke Notos Greyrat, who is having what we in the business call a complete and utter meltdown. The man is shattered. Seeing his father's crest on the arm of their would-be assassins has broken something in him. He is muttering, he's pale, he's in denial. It's a pathetic sight, really. You almost feel bad for him. Almost. Because while he's having his personal crisis, his accusations start flying faster than Eris's sword strokes. He zeroes in on Rudeus with the intensity of a hawk that spotted a particularly juicy mouse. You knew Opera was coming, you let him escape. The subtext is so thick you could cut it with a knife. I think you're a traitor, Rudeus. Oh, the irony is so delicious it should be served with dessert. Here is Luke, almost certainly a pawn of the very being orchestrating this chaos, pointing a trembling finger at the one guy who's actually trying to save the princess. It's a masterclass in projection. You can practically see the man, God's poisonous whispers echoing in his head, twisting his perception of reality. He's a puppet who doesn't even know who's pulling his strings, lashing out at the one person who can see the threads. And Rudeus? He's playing it cool, but internally, he's connecting the dots at lightning speed. The pieces are all falling into place. Luke's shock isn't just about daddy issues. It's the confusion of a man whose guaranteed future, promised by a smiling God, has just crumbled to dust before his eyes. The man, God's grand plan, has a Luke-shaped hole in it, and our boy is starting to see the outline. The real power move, however, doesn't come from Rudeus. It comes from Princess Ariel. While Luke is spiraling, she remains the picture of calm, calculated authority. She listens to the debate, she weighs the options, and then she delivers a verdict that is nothing short of a political masterstroke. She sides with Rudeus. Her reasoning? Pure genius? Turning back to Perugius would make her look weak. A princess who flees at the first sign of trouble. A queen cannot afford to be seen as a coward. But in that moment, with that single glance she throws Rudeus, you have to wonder, does she genuinely trust him? Or is she making a cold, hard calculation that his usefulness and power outweigh the potential risk of his mysterious bandit friends? This is Ariel Anamwa Asura, folks. She doesn't make moves. She plays chess while everyone else is playing checkers. But the most pivotal scene of this chapter isn't the strategy talk. It's the confrontation. When Luke's muttering edges dangerously close to outright treason, Ariel doesn't scream or accuse him. No, she does something far more powerful. She reminds him of his identity. Luke Nodos Greyrat, tell me what you are. The air freezes. This is it. The moment he either confirms his loyalty or reveals his betrayal. I am your knight. And with those 4 words, the spell is broken. The tension dissipates. For now. It's a breathtaking display of their bond. A bond so strong it can, for a moment, override the insidious influence of a god. It's a win, but a fragile one. As Rudeus notes, it also confirms his worst fear. Luke is 100 a disciple. The man, God, has his claws deep in him. The subsequent trek through the forest is a somber, silent affair, giving Rudeus plenty of time to indulge in his favorite pastime, overthinking. He dissects the men, God's possible plays like a grandmaster analyzing a chessboard. Why let the gods set Luke and Darius on conflicting paths? The answer is both simple and terrifying. The man, God, is a brilliant manipulator, but a terrible strategist. He's so used to his omniscient cheat codes that when faced with a few jammers, like Rudeus's bracelet, his plans start to contradict each other. He's playing whack, a mole with prophecies, and the moles are starting to fight back. His meeting with Orsted is equally illuminating. Orsted, the eternal fountain of ominous calm, isn't even mad about Auber's escape. He practically expected it. His assessment of the situation is chillingly pragmatic. Things are going smoothly, but Rudeus, our wonderfully paranoid protagonist, feels the unease creeping in. When your all-powerful dragon boss says everything is going to plan, you should probably start worrying about what isn't in the plan. And the chapter ends on the perfect cliffhanger. Just as Rudeus returns to camp, ready to deliver his blonde, all-clear report, he finds an unexpected visitor by the fire, Princess Ariel herself, with a bold smile and an invitation for a midnight stroll. Cut the music, roll the credits. This isn't a casual walk in the woods, this is a summons. The princess has decided it's time for a one-on-one with her most powerful, most mysterious assets. What does she want? To thank him? To interrogate him? To propose a darker, more direct alliance away from Luke's ears? The political game is entering a new, more dangerous phase, and Rudeus is about to find himself alone on the chessboard with the queen. Good luck, buddy. You're going to need it. Just when they thought the political intrigue couldn't get any thicker, Princess Ariel decides it's time for a little midnight stroll. And not just any stroll, a let's walk into the spooky woods alone with the suspiciously powerful mage kind of stroll. What could possibly go wrong? The air is thick with unspoken questions. Rudeus, our perpetually overthinking hero, is on high alert, his mental gears grinding as he tries to figure out Ariel's angle. Is this about Luke? Is it about his sudden alliance? Is she about to offer him a royal pardon or a dagger in the ribs? But Ariel, ever the master of the dramatic pause, starts with small talk about his wives. She observes with the keen eye of a royal gossip how Sylphie has seamlessly taken on the role of the big sister to the fiercely impulsive heiress. It's a charming observation, a moment of genuine human insight amidst the looming assassination attempts. But let's be real, it's also a classic power play. She's showing Rudeus that she sees everything. She's not just a figurehead, she's a master strategist who notices the subtle dynamics in his own household. It's a flex, and a brilliant one. Then, she cuts to the chase, the real reason for this moonlit rendezvous, Luke. And she doesn't beat around the bush, she outright states what we've all been thinking. I think Luke has betrayed us. The audacity. This is the man she's trusted since childhood, her sworn knight, and she's confessing her suspicions to a relative newcomer. The level of calculated risk here is astronomical. She's bearing a critical vulnerability, and in doing so, she's testing Rudeus's loyalty more effectively than any direct question ever could. Her theory, not divine manipulation, but something far more mundane and tragic: coercion. She believes his family might be held hostage. It's a heartbreakingly human explanation, and it shows that beneath her regal exterior, Ariel understands the pressures of noble life. She trusts Luke's heart, but suspects his circumstances. But then, she pivots. It's like, she's not really here just for Luke. That was the appetizer. The main course is far more audacious. I want to see the man who controls you from the shadows. That is to say, the dragon god Orsted. Cue the record scratch. Rudeus's internal monologue probably short-circuited. She knew everything. All secret meetings, his hidden allegiance. She pieced it together from the moment he led them to the library labyrinth. The convenient timing gave him away. This princess is so perceptive it's almost terrifying. And just like that, as if summoned by the sheer force of her royal command, Wyrm appears. Orsted materializes from the shadows, the living embodiment of be careful what you wish for. What follows is not dignified. Ariel's body has a rather extreme two-part reaction to Orsted's soul-crushing curse. First, pure, unadulterated terror. Then a wave of ecstasy. Let's just say a change of underwear was urgently required, and Rudeus, in what must be the weirdest moment of his life, finds himself doing a princess's laundry in the woods with magic. The mighty quagmire mage reduced to a supernatural dry cleaner. The absurdity is simply sublime. But here's where Ariel proves why she deserves a throne. After that humiliating, curse-induced episode, she composes herself with breathtaking speed. She doesn't flee in shame. She doesn't retract her request. She stands there pale but resolute and gets down to business. This woman has nerves of steel. The conversation that follows is a masterclass in high-stakes negotiation. Orsted, in a shocking move, lays all his cards on the table. The man god, the century-long prophecy. The fate of Asura hinging on her magical policies versus Gravel's military ones. It's a lot to swallow. Rudeus is hearing half of this for the first time himself, and his internal scream of, "Hey, boss, a little heads up next time." He's practically audible. Ariel, the brilliant skeptic, uses Rudeus as her living lie detector. She watches his face for tells, and he, poor guy, is terrible at hiding his shock. But this raw honesty works in their favor. The story is too insane not to be true. And then, she makes her move. The move that redefines the entire game. She doesn't just accept Orsted's help. She kneels. She formally offers herself as his subordinate. Think about the sheer breathtaking pragmatism of this. She's aligning herself with a being so cursed whose mere presence makes people wet themselves in more ways than one. She's willing to be seen as making a deal with the devil if it means securing her throne and saving her kingdom a century down the line. Her reasoning is flawless. I'm not foolish enough to throw away my opportunities to avoid all risk. This is the cold, hard calculus of a born queen. She even negotiates for Luke. She claims responsibility for her knight, promising to win him back or eliminate him herself. She's taking the burn from Rudeus, freeing him to focus on the supernatural threats while she handles the human ones. It's a perfect division of labor. So just like that, Orsted Incorporated gets a stunning new hire, the second princess of Asura, head of human resources and covert operations. Rudeus now has a co-worker, and her office is a kingdom. The chapter ends with them returning to camp, now bound by a terrible, world-altering secret. And Sophie, of course, is not pleased. Because when your husband goes for a walk in the woods with a beautiful princess and comes back smelling like her perfume and sharing conspiratorial glances, even the most understanding wife is going to have questions. The battlefield has shifted. It's no longer just about swords and spells. It's about alliances forged in the dark, secrets kept from loved ones, and a princess who looked into the eyes of a dragon god and didn't just survive, she made him her boss. The game is on, and Ariel, Asura, has just become its most dangerous player. Well, folks, buckle up because we're diving deep into the shady underbelly of the Asuran borderlands. Our intrepid heroes have officially gone off road, leaving the main path and its conveniently placed ambushes behind. They're now trudging through the dense, monster-infested forest to rendezvous with the group of people who make their living by breaking laws and presumably personal boundaries. Bandits. Thanks to Rudeus' nifty little dragon god, branded jamming bracelet, the man, god is theoretically flying blind. He can't see this little detour coming. It's a brilliant advantage, the magical equivalent of throwing a blanket over a security camera. But you can feel the tension. Rudeus is hoping the so-called god is too arrogant to remember the fine print from a future diary, but it's a gamble. The entire plan hinges on the incompetence of a celestial being. What could possibly go wrong? The meeting with the bandits is a masterclass in awkwardness. They emerge from the trees like particularly grumpy ghosts surrounding the party. Eris, our beloved berserker, immediately starts doing a head count, her internal calculus seemingly being 5 of them. We could take them. Sweetheart, your math is as subtle as your swordplay. There are at least 20. Her protective instincts are in overdrive since Auber's sneak attack, sticking to Rudeus like a beautiful lethal shadow. Then comes the secret handshake, or more accurately, the secret passphrase, "What says the echo in reply?" the lead bandit grunts. And Rudeus, having crammed with his dragon, God Boss, replies with the magical words, rabbit entrails, and the chirping of a thrush. It's so absurd, it's brilliant. This isn't high-level diplomacy. It's a fantasy spy thriller written by someone with a fever dream. And Eris thinks it's the coolest thing she's ever seen. The bar for awesome is refreshingly low when you're married to a walking natural disaster. They're led to a charming woodland cabin that can best be described as rustic, which is a polite way of saying it's a bug-infested hovel with damp, questionable bedding. The bandit takes his payment and leaves with a warning not to wander off. The trust just radiates from this place. Inside, the party dynamics are a soap opera. Luke is still shooting suspicious glances at Rudeus, probably because the man, God's last prophecy was something unhelpful like, beware the guy who knows too many weird animal-based code words. Ariel, freshly initiated into the Orsted fan club, is playing it cool, but you can see the gears turning. She's already working on Luke, a project she personally requisitioned for management. And then, the main event arrives. Tris, or as she's known in polite society, Tris the Hasty. And let me tell you, the name fits. She bursts in like a hurricane of profanity and resentment, soaked from the rain and already in a spectacularly bad mood. She's lost at dice, been mocked by a colleague and spat on by a slave. She is, in short, not having a good day. Rudeus's carefully laid plan to slowly befriend and manipulate her immediately goes out the window. He opens his mouth to deploy his best and brightest smile, which apparently has the same effect on people as a tax audit. Tris looks at him like he's something she scraped off her boot. But then Luke steps in, The man might be a suspected traitor, but by the gods, he is a smooth operator. With a handkerchief and a few well-practiced words, he calms the storm that is Tris. It's a reminder that for all his current turmoil, this guy is a master of assuring courtly charm. It's fake, it's calculated, and it works perfectly. Never underestimate the power of a pretty face and a dry forehead. Just as Rudeus is about to try again, Eris decides to contribute to the negotiations. Not with words, "Oh no, no!" with a simple heating, ting, as she flicks her finger against her sword pommel. It's the universal sound for "I am bored of this conversation and am 3 seconds away from solving it with violence." The effect is instantaneous. The temperature in the room drops. Tris, the hardened bandit, starts trembling. It's a stark reminder that while Luke has charm, Eris has the kind of presence that makes people very, very compliant. But just as Rudeus is about to launch into his convoluted, multi-step plan of subtle manipulation, the real master strategist takes the stage. Princess Ariel. She emerges looking slightly sleep-rumpled and utterly majestic and drops a bombshell. "Excuse me, are you by any chance Tristina Purple Horse?" And with that single line, she hijacks the entire operation. She doesn't manipulate, she doesn't scheme, she connects. She reveals her identity, her plight, and then she just listens. She lets Tris pour out her tragic backstory, a tale of kidnapping, slavery, and survival that is as brutal as it is heartbreaking. And Ariel, the master performer, cries genuine tears. What follows is a negotiation conducted not in code words or veiled threats, but in raw human emotion and a promise of vengeance. Ariel doesn't ask for help. She offers a chance for justice. She lays out her power, naming the Quagmire Mage, the Berserker Sword King, the Black Wolf, and the Armored Dragon King himself as her allies. It's a display of sheer, unadulterated political and personal genius. Within an hour, Tris is not just a hired guide. She's a sworn ally, ready to testify against the man who ruined her life. And Rudeus? He just watches. He realizes that all his overthinking and intricate plotting was utterly unnecessary. He was trying to play chess while Ariel was playing a whole different game, one of charisma, empathy, and royal authority. She saw a problem and solved it with breathtaking efficiency, leaving her vicious mage employee in the dust. This chapter is a powerful lesson. You can have all the power in the world, all the secret codes in Dragon, god alliances, but sometimes the most powerful weapon is a princess who knows how to wield her own story and the stories of others. The party has gained a crucial new member, and Rudeus has been firmly put in his place. He's the muscle and the magical artillery. The real queen is handling the rest. Well, folks, we've officially entered the smuggling montage portion of our story. The party has left the main road, and with it, any semblance of legal travel. Guided by our foul-mouthed, surprisingly efficient new ally Tris, they're about to cross the border into Asura via a route that doesn't appear on any map. Because why use a boring official checkpoint when you can have a secret, magical cave system? The journey begins before dawn, because nothing says covert operation like a bunch of people, horses, and a disassembled carriage stumbling through a dark forest. They eventually arrive at a hidden, picture-perfect lake, a place so secluded you'd half expect to find a dragon's treasure hoard. But the real magic is in the cliff face. With a quick incantation, because of course there's an incantation, a cave materializes out of the solid rock. It's like something out of a fantasy novel, which, well, it is. Eris is practically vibrating with excitement, ready for adventure, while Rudeus is just hoping no one slips and ruins their supplies in the knee-deep, freezing water. What follows is an 8-hour trek through a sprawling, man-made tunnel system that puts modern subway networks to shame. It's a labyrinthine masterpiece of ancient engineering, probably built by dwarves who had a serious over-engineering problem. The mood is a mix of wonder and exhaustion. Ariel and her attendants, not used to this much hiking, are flagging badly. You have to give them credit. This is not the royal procession they signed up for. But then, just as morale is hitting rock bottom, they emerge, blinking into the sunlight. Tris makes the grand announcement, "Welcome to the kingdom of Asura." Just like that, they've bypassed an entire fortress and an army of assassins. It's almost too easy. You can feel Rudeus's paranoia kicking in. This is the part in the horror movie where the audience screams, It's a trap. The journey south is a quiet, reflective interlude. They stick to back roads, avoiding main thoroughfares. As they pass by the Fitor region, we get a poignant moment. Sylphie looks upon her ravaged homeland with a bittersweet nostalgia, while Eris just scowls. Her memories of the place are, to put it mildly, not great. She was less a noble daughter and more a caged tiger in a fancy dress. This leads to a beautifully domestic scene between Sylphie and Eris chatting on horseback. Sylphie, in a moment of playful mischief, spins an alternate timeline where Eris stayed in Fitoa as its ruler, with Rudeus as her shadowy advisor. It's a hilarious and terrifying thought. The idea of Eris managing tax policy or diplomatic relations is a recipe for a national disaster solved exclusively with sword swings. Eris, for her part, shuts down the fantasy with her signature bluntness. All I want is to fight with my sword and make babies with Rudeus. Goals? People. She has them. After 10 days, they reach the city of Rigid, a bustling trade hub and the final choke point before the royal capital. It's the perfect place for an ambush, but nothing happens. The silence is deafening. Where is Auber? Where are the armies? The lack of action is more unnerving than a direct attack. It feels like the calm before a very, very violent storm. They lay low in a shady inn that's basically a safe house for Triss's bandit network. And here, we get a rare and wonderful moment. A conversation between Rudeus and Ghislaine. The stoic Sword King actually initiates small talk, thanking him for his clever mud rain trick against Waitea. She even reminds him of a childhood promise to make her another figurine. It's a sweet character building moment that, in any other story, would be a massive death flag. But Rudeus, bless his paranoid heart, recognizes it for what it is. People reminding themselves what they're fighting to protect. Then, the other shoe drops. Triss returns with information, and it's a bombshell. Through her underworld contacts, she's uncovered the truth behind the downfall of Soros Boreas, Eris's grandfather. The mastermind? None other than Palamon Noto's Greyrat, Luke's own father. Ariel, in a display of breathtaking political ruthlessness, lays it all out in front of everyone. She calmly informs Luke that if the betrayal is confirmed, she will allow Ghislaine to execute his father, and then appoint Luke as the new head of the family. It's a brutal, pragmatic move. She's offering Luke his birthright in exchange for his father's head. The psychological whiplash must be staggering for the poor knight. This, of course, confirms Luke's deepest suspicions, fed to him by the man, God, that Rudeus is a master manipulator scheming to steal his family's title. The irony is so thick, you could cut it with Eris's sword. The man, God's lie, is a flimsy house of cards, painting Rudeus as a political genius he most certainly is not. The real puppet master is the god himself, and Ariel is the one deftly cutting his strings. In a private conversation, Ariel finally gets Luke to confess everything. The man, God's pathetic, half-baked prophecy is revealed. Beware Rudeus's betrayal. It's not even a good lie. It's the kind of vague, manipulative nonsense you'd find on a bad horoscope. But for a desperate, confused man like Luke, it was enough. The chapter ends with the party finally arriving at the royal capital of Ars. Luke now glares at Rudeus with open hostility, a suspicious guard dog on a very short leash held by Ariel. The stage is set. The pieces are in place. They've navigated forests, mountains, and secret tunnels. They've survived ambushes and internal betrayals. Now, the final act begins in the glittering, viper-filled heart of the Asuran kingdom. The Game of Thrones is about to begin, and our favorite mage is wondering how he ended up in the middle of it. Our merry band of political pawns and powerhouse bodyguards has finally arrived at the big leagues, the royal capital of Ors. And let me tell you, the place does not disappoint in the overcompensating with sheer size department. This city is less of a metropolis and more of a geographical identity crisis. It's named after some legendary hero, which is always a promising start for a place that probably sees a lot of property damage. The centerpiece is the Silver Palace, a structure so ostentatiously large and shiny it probably causes migraines for birds flying overhead. Surrounding it are the mansions of the high nobles, because God forbid an aristocrat has to walk to see his equally rich neighbor, all encased in fortress walls that look like they could shrug off a dragon's temper tantrum. And the city just keeps going. It's a lesson in urban sprawl, medieval style. They kept building concentric rings of walls as the city grew, like a tree adding rings until they presumably ran out of money or just got bored. The result is a jumbled, chaotic mess that stretches to the horizon. It's impressive, I'll give it that. The kind of place that makes you feel simultaneously insignificant and awestruck, much like looking at a particularly complicated tax form. Our viewpoint character, Rudeus, is trying to play it cool, comparing it to the megacities of his old world, but even he can't deny the raw, awe-inspiring scale. It's one thing to see a skyscraper, it's another to see a hand-carved stone and mortar civilization that eats the entire landscape. But for Princess Ariel and her retinue, this isn't a tourist destination, it's home, and the sight of that silver castle doesn't fill them with wonder. It hardens their faces with grim determination. The vacation is over. The game is on. Once inside, the city feels familiar. It has the usual trappings: street vendors, stables, the occasional bedraggled adventurer who looks like he's seen things he can't unsee. The main road is so wide you could host a jousting tournament and a farmer's market on it simultaneously. Our group moves in a single file, a tactical decision to avoid the headache of noble road etiquette. Because nothing says I'm secretly the rightful heir to the throne like getting into a traffic dispute with a count. Then the fanfare begins. And I mean that almost literally. The common people recognize Luke and Silent Fitz. Sylphie immediately. The news that Princess Ariel has returned spreads faster than gossip in a small village. Flowers are tossed, cheers erupt. It's a veritable parade. Rudeus, our ever-observant narrator, is stuck at the back, feeling like a third wheel at a celebrity wedding. He's mildly impressed by their enduring popularity, but also acutely aware that this is a giant shoot here, sign for any assassins in the crowd. Speaking of assassins, the moment they enter the nobles' district, the mood shifts. The cheering commoners are replaced by stoic patrols of novice knights in bulky, silver armor that looks about as practical as a chocolate teapot. And here's where we get a delightful little character moment. Eris, our beloved hot-headed sword demon, actually has a friend. Her name is Isolde, a water king from the Sword Sanctum, and she's currently playing dress-up as a tin can. Their reunion is a masterpiece of social awkwardness. Isolde, a chatterbox who apparently stores words like a squirrel, stores nuts, launches into a monologue. Eris, in her typical eloquent fashion, greets her with a stellar "Who the heck are you?" before admitting she was joking. The sheer, unadulterated chaos of their friendship is beautiful to behold. The real comedy gold, however, comes from a case of mistaken identity. The ever-charming Luke comes to politely hurry things along, and Isolde immediately pegs him as Rudeus. And she is not a fan. She proceeds to whisper to Eris about how irritating he is, how he's probably a flirt, and questions Eris's taste in men. Rudeus, the actual husband, is just standing there listening to his own character assassination in real time. The irony is so thick you could cut it with a sword. He wisely chooses to stay silent, probably making a mental note to never ever carry a wooden sword again. But the light-hearted moment is tinged with foreshadowing. Isolde, the faithful Millis follower and soon to be royal knight, is on the list of potential enemies. Eris knows this, and when Rudeus asks if she could fight her friend, Eris doesn't even blink. She'd be a good challenge. It's a chilling reminder that in this world, camaraderie and the potential for mortal combat are not mutually exclusive. The rivalry isn't the friendly kind you settle over a beer. Finally, the group reaches Ariel's mansion, a building so large it has its own gravitational pull. After a long-deserved bath in artisanal buckets because nobility, the real planning begins. Ariel lays out the strategy and it's a doozy. Instead of hunting for the enemy in this urban labyrinth, they're going to set a trap. They'll use a magic item, likely that nifty disguise ring, to make Sylphie a decoy for Ariel. The plan is to present a golden opportunity for the enemy to strike, luring their heavy hitters into the open where Rudeus, Eris, and Sylphie can take them down. It's a bold, dangerous gambit. Ariel estimates a 50-50 chance of the enemy taking the bait. And you know what that means. If they don't, this all culminates in one massive bloody battle where our boy Rudeus will have to play the role of a one-man army. No pressure. The chapter closes with the quiet before the storm. They have 10 days to prepare, to scheme, to set the stage for a political and physical showdown that will decide the fate of a kingdom. The errand is stick with the scent of flowers, dust, and impending violence. The battle for Asura is about to begin, and our protagonists are walking right into the lion's den, armed with little more than a clever plan and a whole lot of firepower. Let's just hope it's enough. The political machinations are in full swing, and our protagonists have traded the open road for the gilded corridors of power. Welcome to ours, where the walls are high, the nobles are shifty, and the air is thick with the scent of betrayal. And is that the faint aroma of impending violence? Yes, it is. The plan is now in motion. Princess Ariel, our resident mastermind, is making her rounds at the Silver Palace. It's a place so grand it makes Perugius' floating castle look almost modest. And speaking of the grumpy floating legend, Rudeus gets a delightful little history lesson right there in the hallway. He spots a portrait of Perugius hanging right next to the other two Godslayers. It's a stark reminder that in this world, power isn't just about armies. It's about having a living, breathing one on your side. Ariel securing Perugius' support isn't just a political win. It's the equivalent of bringing a tactical nuke to a knife fight. The respect is literally etched in paint and hung on the wall for all to see. For 3 days, it's a whirlwind of political theater. Rudeus, our ever-suffering bodyguard, is introduced to a parade of nobles whose names he immediately forgets. A mood I think we can all relate to. But the real highlights are the villains. We get a glimpse of High Minister Darius, who is described as a flabby man with drooping jowls and the face of a gluttonous old monster. Charming, and his reaction to seeing Rudeus? Sheer unadulterated terror. It's the look a man gets when he sees his own personal Grim Reaper, and it confirms everything we suspected. This guy is 100 a disciple of the man, God, and he knows Rudeus is his ticket to the afterlife. Then there's first Prince Grabble. Not some dashing young hero, but a bearded man in his 30s with a quiet, unsettling charisma. The kind of guy who probably convinces people to commit treason with a warm smile and a firm handshake. Meanwhile, the trap is set. Sylphie, brave soul that she is playing the part of Ariel's body double, drawing all the fire. And the assassins come, a constant annoying stream of them. They're like mosquitoes, not a real threat to the heavy hitters like Eris and Ghislaine, but irritating enough to keep everyone on edge. It's a testament to how powerful their little group is that these professional killers are treated as a minor nuisance. Rudeus even admits he'd struggle alone, not because he lacks power, but because he lacks the killer instinct to cut down what might be some desperate kid. Thank the gods for Eris and Ghislaine who have no such qualms. But these are just the pawns. Ariel needs to bait the bigger fish. And her method? Spreading a rumor that Eris and Ghislaine are on their period? I am not making this up. It's a bizarre, almost laughably crude tactic that, unsurprisingly, fails spectacularly. The assassins just stop coming. It seems even in a medieval fantasy world, some excuses are just too pathetic to be believed. The political drama gets personal when we meet Pilmanotos Greyrat, Luke's father and the man who betrayed Saros. And what a disappointment he is. Rudeus expects some formidable rival, but finds instead a hesitant, fearful man, a mouse who only once in his life found the courage to be a monster. The confrontation between Luke and his father is a masterclass in familial dysfunction. Luke, who has suffered for nearly a decade for this cause, is met with cold dismissal. It's a harsh reminder that in the Game of Thrones, family is often the first casualty. As the 9th day dawns, the stage is finally set. A grand party at the Silver Palace. It's the most obvious trap in the history of obvious traps, but nobility demands attendance. It's their version of a mandatory team-building exercise, except with more backstabbing. Ariel, in a final masterstroke, leaks some information to spook Darius directly. The theory is simple. You can make a man, God disciple, act against his master's plan by appealing to his base instincts, fear, and self-preservation. And so, on a dark, moonless night, as our heroes are returning home, thinking of a good night's rest before the main event, the bait is finally taken. The opposition arrives, and they are a comedy duo. I present to you the North King Knuckleguard, or should I say Knuckle and Guard, a pair of bunny boy twins with the tactical subtlety of a brick to the face. They not only introduce themselves, but immediately blurt out who hired them. Their banter is so ridiculously choreographed, you'd think they were in a stage play. They are, without a doubt, the most endearingly incompetent high-level assassins in existence. They're the distraction. The real threat comes from the shadows. The halfling Lytea, the North King who gave Ghislaine so much trouble before. And of course, the main event, the North Emperor Oberkorvet, the man with a personal vendetta against Rudeus's face. What follows is a tense, beautifully chaotic standoff. Rudeus's mind is racing, playing a high-stakes game of Ford chess. He knows Auber is here, hiding, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. While Eris confidently engages the bunny twins and Ghislaine faces Watea, Rudeus is the strategist, his eyes scanning, calculating. He can't commit to one fight without leaving another vulnerable. It's a testament to his growth that he's no longer just a magical artillery piece, he's a battlefield commander. And then he finds him, Auber, camouflaged against the massive city wall like some nightmarish gecko. In a moment of brilliant, ruthless efficiency, Rudeus doesn't shout a warning, he doesn't chant a spell, he simply points and fires. A maximum power stone cannon fired in utter silence. It's a gut punch of a moment. He almost gets him too, tearing a hole through Auber's leg. Almost. What follows is a whirlwind of action. Eris, true to her word, handles the twin terrors, though she pays for it with a grievous shoulder wound. Ghislaine, armed with the intel Rudeus provided, dominates Lytea, severing his arms. The halfling, in a last desperate act, unleashes a smokescreen thicker than the plot at a noble's ball, and in the confusion, the cockroach, like Auber, scuttles up a wall and escapes. But the night isn't a total loss. While chasing the fleeing Lytea, Rudeus finds him already dead in an alley, bisected in a horrifically familiar way. The message is clear. Orsted has been watching. He's the unseen hand, cleaning up their mess and reminding everyone that he is, and always has been, the true power behind this little coup. In the end, they've won the battle. 2, or rather, 3. North Kings are dead. Auber is wounded and running. The enemy's ranks have been thinned, but as they stand in the dark street, covered in blood and bantering, the reality sets in. This was just the opening act. The real performance, the final showdown for the throne of Asura, begins tomorrow. And the main villain, Beau Bruised, has just escaped to fight another day. The stage is set, the players are in position, and the final act is about to begin. Let's hope our heroes have saved their best for last. Welcome back, folks, to the political thunderdome that is the Asuran royal court. The stage is set, the silverware is polished, and the air is so thick with tension you could carve it with a butter knife from that ridiculously long table. This isn't a party, it's a gladiatorial arena where the weapons are whispers, alliances, and sheer, unadulterated audacity. Our boy Rudeus is on duty, playing the part of a glorified coat, racked with combat skills, watching the nobility slither in. It's a parade of preening peacocks and nervous mice. The early arrivals are the small fry, chattering lightly about the day's events, blissfully unaware they're about to be spectators to a political execution. Then the big guns arrive. First, we have Pilmon Notos Greyrat, a man so bitter he probably spits vinegar. He takes a moment to sneer at Rudeus, making a bizarre comment about him not being a true Greyrat. It's a confusing, pathetic power play from a man who is, quite literally, on death row and doesn't know it. Ghislaine is just waiting for her cue, and this fool is worried about bloodline purity. The lack of self-awareness is staggering. Then comes the head of the Boreas house, James, who looks less like a powerful lord and more like a man being slowly crushed by the weight of a vanished territory. You almost feel sorry for him, until you remember his family's role in the whole debacle. The Asuran nobility is a nest of vipers, and everyone is both predator and prey. But the main event arrives fashionably late. High Minister Darius, the man who looks like a gluttonous toad and has the moral compass to match. And by his side, the man of the hour, Oberkorvet, the North Emperor himself, looking remarkably spry for someone who recently had a hole blown through his leg. Asuran healing magic is clearly top tier, a fact for which our heroes are undoubtedly thrilled. Auber saunters over to Rudeus and engages in some delightfully passive-aggressive banter. He calls him Rudeus the Dragon's Dog and promises a fair fight next time. It's a villainous declaration wrapped in a smile, and it's chillingly effective. This guy is personal and he's not going away. With all the pieces on the board, the game begins. Ariel starts with the conventional speech, lulling everyone into a false sense of security before she drops the first bomb. Tris Purple Horse. Oh, what a moment this is. The voluptuous bandit queen, cleaned up and looking every inch the noble lady, steps into the hall. The reaction is priceless. Darius's eyes bulge. The Purple Horse family members look like they've seen a ghost, and the rumor mill explodes. Tris then delivers her testimony, a carefully sanitized, heart-wrenching tale of abduction and abuse at the hands of Darius. It's a masterclass in political theater, expertly staged to maximize sympathy and outrage. Darius, to his credit, tries to counter. He's slimy, but he's not stupid. He claims Tris is an imposter, that the real Tris is dead, and even has a fake story about a crescent moon birthmark. It's a decent, if predictable, move. For a second, you can see the gears turning. Has Ariel been outmaneuvered? But no! This is where Ariel's genius shines. She's already played 3 moves ahead. The head of the Purple Horse family, Rudeus, a man trembling like a leaf, doesn't corroborate Darius's lie. Instead, he points a shaking finger at the High Minister and accuses him of the crime. The trap slams shut. Ariel reveals there is no document, no body. It was all a bluff, and she called it. The sight of Darius's former allies abandoning him like rats from a sinking ship is a thing of beauty. It's a brutal reminder that in this world, loyalty is a currency that only valuable when you're winning. They'd all happily eaten from his hand, but the moment he became a liability, they were ready to devour him instead. Just as Darius is politically annihilated, his patron, First Prince Grabble, makes his entrance. He tries to play the responsible older brother, arguing that a kingdom can't afford to lose a talent like Darius over a mere middle-ranked noble. It's a cold, calculating, and utterly pragmatic argument that highlights just how rotten this system is. Human decency is weighed against political utility, and utility usually wins. He proposes a vote, a transparent attempt to strong-arm the nobility with the unspoken threat of future purges. The nobles, ever the opportunists, are clearly leaning his way. His faction is still stronger on paper. It looks like Ariel's masterstroke might not be enough, and then she plays her ultimate card. With a snap of her fingers, a colossal pillar of fire erupts outside the window. But the fire is just the spotlight. The main attraction is what it illuminates. Perugia Stolo's floating fortress, Chaos Breaker, hovering directly above the Silver Palace like the sword of Damocles made real. The arrival is pure theater. Perugius enters with his 12 spirit guardians, radiating an aura of such immense legendary authority that it sucks the air out of the room. Nobles who moments before were scheming for power are now dropping to their knees like awestruck children. He is a living, breathing myth, and his presence alone rewrites the rules of the game. The final, exquisite move comes when Perugius is offered the seat of honor. He declines, stating he's been away too long to take the seat of the next ruler, and gently pushes Ariel into the chair instead. Checkmate. With a single casual gesture, he anoints her the victor. The political battle is over. Ariel has won, outmaneuvering everyone through a brilliant combination of blackmail, strategic alliances, and the political equivalent of summoning a nuclear weapon to a knife fight. But just as the victory seems absolute, just as the credits should start to roll, the man God plays his final desperate card. The ceiling explodes, and an old woman lands in the middle of the rubble, golden sword in hand. It's the water god Rada. The battlefield has just shifted from political to physical, and the final bloody act is about to begin. The Game of Thrones is over. Now it's time for a duel. Well, folks, hold on to your hats because the political thriller just turned into a horror movie and the final boss has arrived. Just when you thought Ariel had checkmated the entire Asura nobility with a literal living legend, the man, God slaps down his own ace. A little old lady with a sword and a personal bubble of instant death. Welcome to the deprivation field. This isn't just a sword technique, it's a domain. A perfect sphere around the water god Rita where movement equals death. She demonstrates this by casually bisecting 2 of Perugius' spirit guardians as if they were made of paper. The room was frozen, a gallery of terrified statues. Eris can't move. Ghislaine can't move. Rudeus doesn't even seem to want to move, looking on with what I can only describe as divine boredom. And Rudeus, he tries to be clever, activating a magic ring and almost loses his hand for the effort. The message is clear. In her zone, she is God, and the only person granted the privilege of movement in this frozen hellscape is the North Emperor, or Corvette. Rita, with the cheerful demeanor of a grandmother asking someone to take out the trash, orders him to kill Ariel, Perugius, and Rudeus. The Quagmire himself is about to become a pincushion. What follows is a masterclass in tension. Auber is conflicted, his eyes darting to his former student. Rhea verbally eviscerates him for his sentimentality, calling him a coward who's all too happy to take the money but balks at the dirty work. It's a fascinating character moment. Even this slippery, underhanded assassin has a line, however faint, and it's drawn at murdering his own pupil in cold blood. But under pressure, he reluctantly agrees, drawing his sword and advancing on a helpless Ariel, just as Rudeus and Eris are preparing for a suicidal last-ditch effort. A romantic, tragic, and utterly futile gesture. A squad of novice knights bursts in, and among them is Isolde, Eris's sword, buddy, and a water king. She's horrified, demanding an explanation from her master. Rada's response is pure, chilling genius. She immediately starts weaving a cover story on the spot, framing herself and Albert as foreign agents, with Isolde as the hero who will stop them. It's a brutal, pragmatic move that shows she's not just a swordswoman, she's a strategist who understands politics and narrative. She's tying up loose ends even as she holds a room hostage. But then something shifts. Rudeus, in a moment of sheer, unadulterated terror, activates his ultimate weapon. The mana in his body charged with Orsted's cursed, terrifying aura. A wave of primal, soul-deep fear washes over the room. Nobles soil themselves. Everyone trembles. Rita herself breaks a sweat. She realizes what this means. He is coming. In a stunning pivot, Rita changes the entire plan. She orders a confused Auber to grab Darius and run, citing an old debt. And then, in the quiet before the storm, she gives us a glimpse of her humanity. She tells a story of a young, arrogant prodigy saved from mutilation by a noble boy. A boy who grew up to be the bloated, corrupt monster, Darius. It was a debt of life, a forgotten first love, now twisted and called due by the man, God, in her dreams. It's a tragic, almost beautiful reason to throw away her life, a poignant reminder that even the most powerful pawns in the man, God's game, have their own histories, their own regrets. And then he arrives. Orsted doesn't make an entrance. He imposes a new reality. His aura alone causes mass panic. He walks through Rada's deprivation field not by dodging, but by simply slapping her lightning-fast strikes away with his bare hands. Sparks fly, the air shrieks, and he doesn't even break stride. It's not a fight, it's a demonstration. He walks up to her and punches a hole through her chest, discarding her like a used tissue. The legendary water god defeated in seconds. The power gap is so vast it's almost comical. With the immediate threat gone, the hunt begins. Ariel, snapping back to her role as commander, orders the pursuit of Darius. What follows is a frantic chase through the palace corridors, culminating in a final, desperate stand in a side room. This is where Rudeus' battlefield truly begins. Auber is ready, and he fights as dirty as expected. His crimson ink technique uses exploding adhesive balls to root Eris and Geislane, a brilliantly cheap trick that almost works. But Rudeus is prepared, countering with water magic. The fight is a chaotic, brutal ballet. Auber, true to his title, is a nightmare in close quarters, his techniques designed to create openings through misdirection and sheer unpredictability. He targets Rudeus, and in a heart-stopping sequence, he severs Rudeus' leg at the shin with the nebulous cross. The pain is excruciating, the injury horrific. But Rudeus survives, having used his eye of foresight to turn a killing blow into a crippling one. The tide turns when a blinded, desperate Darius tries to cast Fireball, a pathetic last-ditch effort from a man who has always used others to do his fighting. The distraction is all the opening the Sword Kings need. Eris, wounded by a poisoned kunai and slain in perfect sync, corner Auber. He manages the impossible, blocking Eris's sword of light, but he can't escape Ghislaine. The flawless technique cuts him down, and with his final words, "Splendidly done," the North Emperor Albercorbit dies. A professional to the very end, Darius is left blind and helpless, begging for a man who is already dead. Ghislaine delivers the killing blow without ceremony. The main villain of the Asura arc is gone, his death as messy and undignified as his life. In the aftermath, there's no triumph, only the cold reality of being a murderer. Rudeus feels the weight of it now more than ever, but there's no time to dwell. A quick heal from a king tier scroll fixes his leg, and a frantic search for an antidote saves Eris from Auber's poison. A final posthumous screw you from her former teacher. They survived, they won. They return to the main hall, bloodied but victorious, expecting to be hailed as heroes, and they are met with the ultimate betrayal. Luke, the ever-loyal knight, has a sword to Ariel's throat, and his demand is simple, direct and shattering. If you want to save Princess Ariel, kill Rudeus here and now. The chapter ends not with the resolution, but with the most devastating cliffhanger imaginable. The political and physical battles are over. The personal one, it seems, has just begun. Well, folks, just when you thought the dust was settling after a dragon god punched a hole through a sword saint and our heroes turned a corrupt minister into a pincushion, we get the real final boss of the Asura arc, a spectacular grade political meltdown. The scene is the party hall, now more like a trauma ward for the Asuran elite. The nobles are shell-shocked, trying to process the fact that their new queen commands the loyalty of a man who can kill living legends before breakfast. They've rationalized Orsted as just another one of Perugius's terrifying pets, and they've accepted their fate. All hail Queen Ariel, who apparently solves political disputes with the subtlety of a tactical nuke. But there's one fly in the ointment, one man whose brain hasn't been completely overridden by fear and pragmatism. Luke Notos Greyrat. Luke, the eternal simp, the loyal knight, the guy who's been simping for Ariel since they were in diapers. While everyone else sees a powerful new monarch, Luke sees his childhood friend making a deal with the devil. He saw Orsted. He felt that aura of pure, concentrated malevolence, and unlike everyone else, he can't just shrug and say, "Well, I'm sure the queen knows what she's doing." His internal monologue is a masterpiece of cognitive dissonance. He knows the man. God is shady, but compared to the walking nightmare that is Orsted, the man, God's gentle dreamy advice seems almost divine. He's trapped between a god he thinks is sketchy and a dragon he knows is evil, and his princess has firmly chosen Team Dragon. It's enough to make any knight question his life choices. And then, the final straw arrives, wearing the face of abject cowardice. His father, Philemon, the man who betrayed Ariel, sent assassins after her, and now that the ship is sinking, he comes crawling back on his hands and knees, spouting the most transparent, pathetic lies you've ever heard. He claims it was all a ruse, a deep cover operation to help her all along. The sheer, unadulterated gall of it is almost impressive. Ariel, to her credit, doesn't just execute him on the spot. She publicly eviscerates him. She shouts him down, calling him contemptible, shameful, and a burden on the kingdom. It's a glorious, politically necessary execution. By words, she's making an example of him, showing the entire court that her mercy has limits. And then she turns to Luke and delivers the killing blow. "Luke, lend me your sword." This is the moment Luke breaks. He looks at his father, this weak, pathetic, clumsy man who was never cut out for leadership, but who doted on him, who helped Ariel for years. And something in him snaps. He can't watch this. He can't be the one to hand the princess the blade that kills his own father. So what does he do? In a move of breathtaking, suicidal stupidity, he grabs Ariel and holds his own sword to her neck. Let me just let that sink in for a moment. The single most loyal man in the entire kingdom, the guy whose entire personality is protect Ariel, decides the best way to protect her is to become her most immediate physical threat. The logic is so beautifully, tragically broken. He's not trying to hurt her. He's having a full-blown, public existential crisis and using her as a prop. What follows is a tense, absurd standoff with Sylphie. Luke, with a blade to his queen's throat, tries to argue philosophy. Don't you see how weird this is, Sylphie? Orsted is evil? Are you even thinking for yourself? And Sylphie, our quiet, badass mage, delivers the most devastatingly simple rebuttal in history. She doesn't trust Orsted. She trusts Rudy completely. unquestioningly. Her loyalty isn't to a cause or a god, it's to her husband. When Luke poses his insane hypothetical, if I told you to kill Rudeus to save Ariel, what would you do? She doesn't even blink. I'd choose Rudy. It's a raw, emotional gut punch that exposes the core difference between them. Luke's loyalty is to an ideal, a princess on a throne. Sylphie's loyalty is to a person, the man she loves, and her answer, spoken right in front of the woman she serves, is both brutally honest and incredibly powerful. This is the moment the fog clears for Luke. He hears his own stupid argument thrown back at him. What did he sign up for? To be a fair weather knight? Or to stand by his princess, even when he thinks she's walking into hell? And then Ariel speaks, and she's calm. Eerily calm. She doesn't ask why. She doesn't beg. She simply says, I am your princess. 5 words that carry the weight of a lifetime. In that moment, she isn't a queen commanding a subject. She's the girl he grew up with, reminding him of who he is. It breaks him. The sword clatters to the floor. The madness is over. The resolution is a masterstroke of political theater and personal grace. Ariel doesn't have him executed. Oh no. She smacks him on the head with the flat of the blade and declares that his legendary lust for women drove him to a fit of madness, where he just had to grope his princess. It's a cover story so flimsy it's transparent, but it's her way of publicly forgiving him without losing face. She winks. She winks. She smiles her old childhood smile. The crisis is averted not by force, but by a shared understanding and a deeply buried affection. And in a final act of cleanup, Rudeus, the master of awkward solutions, pipes up to pin all of Palemon's crimes, including the murder of Saros, on the conveniently deceased Darius. The slain is pacified with the yank of her tail from Eris, who has apparently learned the phrase read the room. The last loose thread is tied up. The battle for Asura isn't one with a sword or a spell in this chapter. It's one in the mind of a single tormented knight. It's a story about the limits of loyalty, the weight of command, and the bizarre, messy human connections that underpin even the most calculated political machinations. Ariel secures her throne not just through fear, but by proving she understands the hearts of her followers better than they understand themselves. No, that's a queen. Well, folks, 10 days had blown by since we turned the Asuran royal palace into a magical battleground. The dust had settled, and what a pretty picture it made. The water god was fish food, her lackey Auber was dealt with, and the slimy Darius was no longer clogging the royal pipes. We even got the legendary Peruius to make a guest appearance, effectively checkmating Prince Grabble and his band of entitled sycophants. The political fallout was efficient. Ariel, in her newfound power, gracefully booted Palemon from the head of the Notice Greyrat family and sent him to time out in his own domain. His son, Luke, was promoted to the big chair, with his politically savvy older brother as the power behind the throne. You could already see the gears turning. The brother would handle the boring paperwork while Luke got to look important. Even Ghislaine's murderous glare softened after Luke's brother laid on the charm, showering Eris with praise and a marriage inquiry. Watching Ghislaine preen at that was like watching a wolf suddenly wag its tail. She even signed on as Ariel's permanent bodyguard. A tidy, happy ending for everyone, except of course for me, who had to navigate the aftermath. My first order of business, a meeting with my boss, the ever-cheerful Orsted. The location? A charming, secluded catacomb beneath a servant's cemetery. Because nothing says debriefing like a late-night chat in a potential zombie rave venue. I, being a considerate citizen of the living, conjured up some furniture because sitting on a coffin felt a tad disrespectful. Orsted, bless his heart, didn't seem to mind either way. He started with congratulations, declaring Ariel's victory absolute. I, ever the warrior, pointed out that the old king was still technically alive, and that desperate nobles were surely plotting a comeback. But Orsted's confidence was as unshakable as his glare. He looked at me with the intensity of 1,000 suns and finally decided to drop the mother of all truth bombs. Turns out, his whole "I can see the flow of destiny" shtick, a lie. A big, fat, monumental lie. The truth was far more terrifying. The man is stuck in a time loop, a 200-year-long reset button that kicks in whenever he dies or fails to kill the man. God. He's been at this for over 100 cycles. Let that sink in. Over 20,000 years of grinding the same quest. The sheer mind-numbing tedium of it all is enough to make you weep for him. No wonder he's so grumpy. Suddenly, his absolute certainty made a horrifying kind of sense. He hasn't foreseen Ariel's victory. He's lived through this exact political squabble dozens of times. He knows every twist, every turn, every point where the man, God, gives up and moves on. We had passed that point. The game was, for all intents and purposes, already won. It's not clairvoyance, it's the brutal earned knowledge of a being for whom history is a repeating record, and he's sick of the song. The revelation was staggering. All my anxiety, my careful planning for contingencies, it was all rendered somewhat trivial by the sheer weight of his experience. It's hard to argue with someone who has literally seen it all before. With the cosmic horror out of the way, the rest of our stay was almost mundane. Isolde, the Water King, paid a visit. I was ready for a vengeful showdown, but she was surprisingly civil. She saw right through my protective stance over Eris and, ironically, had seemed to win me some points. She'd assumed I was a neglectful scoundrel, but my obvious concern for my wife, number 3, her words, not mine, and yes, Eris stomped on my foot for it, convinced her otherwise. It was a relief to see she wasn't holding a grudge, choosing instead to focus on rebuilding her water god-style school under Ariel's new regime. A pragmatic, if slightly cold, decision. The sword masters of this world move on quickly. Then came the dinner invitation from the Boreas family. No Eris, of course. They were terrified of her. The whole affair was a transparent attempt to cozy up to me, the suddenly influential in-law, and use me as a pawn to undermine the Nodos branch. It was all veiled compliments and political maneuvering. This wasn't the warm, chaotic Boreas household I remembered from my youth. This was a den of cautious snakes. I nodded, smiled, and promised them nothing. It felt like saying a final goodbye to a part of my past. As the days wound down, I confirmed with Ariel that my work was done. Our final meeting in her obscenely luxurious chambers was a mix of gratitude and gentle teasing. She offered me any reward, and my entrepreneurial spirit kicked in. I asked for royal endorsement for my demon figurine business. She agreed without a second thought, proving that when you're about to be the queen of the richest nation on earth, you can bribe your way past any religious objections. A truly inspiring lesson in economics. The most poignant moment, however, was between her and Sophie. Sophie had officially resigned as her bodyguard. Watching these two friends, a commoner and a future queen, express their gratitude and affection for each other was genuinely touching. It was a world away from the lonely, mud-stained little girl I first met. She'd found her place, her strength, and a powerful friend for life. And so, on the 10th day, it was time to go home. The capital's dramas, its intrigues, and its truths were behind us. We had secured a future for the kingdom and, more importantly, for ourselves, but the echo of Orsted's confession lingered. We were closer to the final battle than ever, a battle that had been raging for millennia. The vacation was over. The real work was just beginning. And so, on the day of our departure, Asura decided to give us a proper send-off. Not with fanfare, but with a series of quiet, profound goodbyes that hit far harder than any battle. It began at dawn with Geislane. Of course it did. She arrived, a vision of stoic feline intensity, armed not with her legendary blade, but with 3 wooden swords. No explanations were needed. In the cramped, flower-filled backyard of our borrowed mansion, with a sleepy Sylphie and puzzled maids as our audience, we fell into the familiar, punishing rhythm of a sword god-style training session. There was a strange nostalgia in the air. The practice swings, the forms, swift wind, and all the rest. It was a dance I knew by heart, a relic of my childhood. I'd even improved, mind you. Ghislaine wasn't shouting corrections about my form anymore, though she was quick to snap at my wandering focus. Some things never change. But the real spectacle wasn't my adequate swordsmanship, it was the silent, thunderous conversation happening between master and disciple. When they faced each other for the final spar, the air itself grew still and heavy. This wasn't practice, this was a rite of passage. They moved in a blur, a crack of wood echoing before my eyes could even process the motion. And there it was, Ares' bent practice sword at Ghislaine's neck, Ghislaine's own sword shattered at the hilt. The silence that followed was louder than any clash. In that single decisive moment, The student had truly surpassed the master. Eris's scowling face, trembling with the effort of holding back tears, said more than any victory speech could. Dislay's solemn nod was the final period on a decade of mentorship. Her farewell was a simple, "Well then, Lady Eris, farewell," and with a glance my way that screamed you protect her, or else the great Gaislandi Doldia walked out of our lives, or at least out of our daily routine. The dam broke the second she was gone. Eris, my fierce, untamable wife, dissolved into heaving, noisy sobs. It was a raw, beautiful, and heartbreaking display. It's easy to forget that beneath the Sword King's ferocity is a woman whose heart is fiercely loyal and painfully deep. Later, it was Sylphie's turn for farewells. A parade of nobles from Ariel's faction came to pay respects to the legendary Silent Fitz, now revealed to be a woman and, shockingly, my wife. Sylphie navigated it with polite, diplomatic exhaustion, a role she's mastered but never enjoyed. The real emotion came with her friends, Elamoy and Clean. Their goodbye was a tangle of promises and tears, the genuine article between women who had shared a life far removed from me. Then came Luke. "Ah, will do." The man can't help but be a drama queen, even in his sincerity. He arrived on his princely steed, schedule bursting, to make amends. His apology to Sylphie was awkward but real. And then, with the breathtaking audacity of a man who enjoys living dangerously, he dropped his little gem. If she ever leaves me, she should come to him, right in front of me. Timing. To her credit, Sylphie shot him down with the gentle finality of a closing bolt. He backpedaled, claiming it was just a friendly offer of shelter, but the sweat on his brow betrayed him. I almost felt for the guy. He then had the gall to offer me the company of his Kurgan maids if I ever got tired of my stick of a girl. The resulting death glare from Sylphie was a thing of beauty. It was a bizarre, slightly messy farewell, but beneath the banter, there was a thread of hard-earned respect. We could have been friends in another life. The journey home was a stark contrast to our arduous trek to Asura. Thanks to Rudeus and his conveniently installed teleportation circles, what took us a month was now a day trip. The revelation that her tear-soaked farewell to Ghislaine was, geographically speaking, almost unnecessary sent Eris into a brief, punchy fury. Oh, the irony. But the emotion was real, even if the distance wasn't. Some goodbyes are necessary for the soul, not just the body. That night, in the cold, silent grandeur of his floating fortress, the weight of it all finally settled on me. We'd won. We'd secured a kingdom. So why did I feel so hollow? Sitting by the fireplace while my wife slept, I realized this was the new normal. These shadow wars, these political victories that brought no joy, were my life now. I was a pawn on Orsted's ancient cyclical chessboard, and the game was far from over. It was Sylphie, of course, who pulled me from my melancholy. She joined me in the quiet, and in that warmth, she shared her own quiet revolution. With her duty to Ariel complete, she felt a void, but she was already filling it with purpose. She wasn't just giving up a job, she was consciously choosing her next role. She wrestled with envy of Eris's combat prowess, with the feeling of being left behind, and had arrived at a profound conclusion. Her strength lay elsewhere. Her new mission was to be the heart of our home. To raise Lucy and all our future children, to be the anchor that allows Roxy to teach and me to fight. It wasn't a surrender, it was a strategic redeployment. She found a way to support me that Eris never could, and in doing so, she carved out her own indispensable place in our tangled family dynamic. The moment was so tender, so filled with love and resolve, that I, being me, almost ruined it by getting handsy, only to be frozen by the predatory, glittering gaze of a wide-awake Eris from the bed. Some things, thankfully, never change. As I drifted to sleep, sandwiched between my warrior and my homemaker, I felt a flicker of the optimism that had eluded me by the fire. Sylphie had closed one chapter and boldly started the next. She was evolving. Her quiet strength, the kind that builds futures in nurseries rather than destroying enemies on battlefields, was exactly what I needed. The war against fate was far from over, but with a foundation like that, maybe, just maybe, we could face it without fear. Homecoming, there's nothing quite like returning from a high-stakes political assassination mission to find that your city hasn't been reduced to a smoldering crater. A low bar, perhaps, but when you work for a cursed dragon, God locked in a time loop war with a psychic manipulator, he learned to appreciate the small victories. Sharia was just as we left it, blissfully unaware of the chaos we unleashed in the royal capital. My house was still standing, not frozen, thorn, encased, or otherwise magically vandalized. A resounding success by my current standards. The welcome was typically chaotic. Aisha, a whirlwind of ambition and entitlement, immediately demanded her tribute. Eris, ever the straightforward benefactor, presented her with a hand mirror from Asura. It was a poignant moment, really. Eris getting the credit for a gift Sophie undoubtedly picked out, because Eris's idea of a thoughtful present is probably a whetstone or a particularly sturdy cudgel. But the joy on Aisha's face was genuine, and for a moment, the world felt normal. Then, the real drama unfolded. Roxy, my beloved, brilliant, and currently very pregnant wife was hiding, peeking from behind door frames like a shy, meagered mirage. The big reveal, her body was doing what pregnant bodies do. She'd gotten bigger, and the specific earth-shattering crisis, her belly button had popped out. Let me tell you, you haven't truly lived until you've had to navigate the emotional minefield of a superhero-level mage having a meltdown over her own navel. This was the woman who faced down my teenage angst and taught me the fundamentals of magic, now rendered utterly vulnerable by a physiological quirk. It was equal parts adorable and heartbreaking. Her anxiety was a stark reminder that for all her power and wisdom, she was navigating this for the first time, terrified that the changes to her body would make her less desirable. What followed was a masterclass in absurd husbandly diplomacy. I had to negotiate a treaty on permissible zones of physical contact. Head, green light, but, surprisingly, approved. Belly and breasts, absolutely forbidden, high security zones. The bath, a diplomatic incident waiting to happen. And the resolution to this tense standoff, I was commanded to lick the offending belly button. To prove my devotion wasn't contingent on its any status. I'm not proud of the thoughts that ran through my head, a chaotic blend of genuine affection and sheer unadulterated creep. But I did it, and in that bizarre, intimate moment, I felt our child move for the first time, a tiny kick against my tongue. And just like that, the spell of insecurity was broken. The absurdity melted away, replaced by a profound warm connection. I was home, not just in a house, but in my life. But the comfort of home can't completely silence the ghosts you bring back with you. My next stop was a quiet, orange-tinted visit to the graveyard. To Paul, it's becoming a morbid tradition of mine, debriefing with my dead father. Nobody died this time either, I told his headstone. A hollow boast when you consider how many times we danced on the edge of that particular abyss. I laid it all out for him. Orsted's terrifying truth, the time loops, the battles, the close calls. I told him about his brother Pelamon, a faint-hearted man who somehow still carried a ghost of Paul's likeness in his eyes. I even admitted to the murder, the bad taste it left, the lingering stench of moral compromise that no victory can truly wash away. And that's when the real introspection hit. The post-mission high faded, leaving only the cold sweat of hindsight. We'd won, yes, but it was a victory built on a house of cards. What if Orsted had been a second later? What if Auber hadn't conveniently carried the antidote to his own poison? What if? I'd been telling myself that Paul's death was just bad luck, an unavoidable tragedy. But standing there, faced with the sheer number of near misses in Asura, that comfortable lie began to crumble. Luck is a fickle ally. Relying on it is like trying to fill a sieve with water. My father died because of a series of small failures, missteps, and yes, a final, cruel twist of fate. We just survived Asura through a similar series of fortunate bounces. I can't keep rolling these dice with the lives of everyone I love on the line. Eris poisoned and bleeding out, her life hanging by a thread. That can't be the standard operating procedure for victory. My future self was a powerhouse of magic, and his life was a desolate wasteland. Power alone isn't the answer, but neither is blind hope. The conclusion was both grim and motivating. I need to be better. Not just stronger in firepower, but smarter, more prepared, with more allies and fewer vulnerabilities. I need to win so decisively that luck doesn't get a vote. So I left the graveyard with a renewed vow, whispered to a stone that cannot answer. I'll do my best. I have to, because the next time I stand here, I don't want to have to say, we were lucky. I want to be able to say we were ready. The comfort of home is a precious thing, but it's the ghosts in the graveyard that remind you what it costs to protect it. Let's take a moment, shall we? To step away from our heroes and their noble struggles, let's visit a nameless bar in a town that doesn't matter, where the air is thick with smoke and the ghosts of bad decisions. Here we find a scene as old as time itself, a man trying to drown his past in a bottle. To the bartender, he was just another drunkard, a pathetic spectacle of repeated trips to the bathroom and slurred speech. Nothing new! But then, as the night wore on and the crowd thinned, the man did something that separates the common drunk from the tragically interesting. He started a conversation with an empty chair. And what a conversation it was. This wasn't the incoherent rambling of a man lost to liquor. No, this was a chillingly coherent one-sided negotiation. The bartender, a man who thought he'd heard it all, found himself an unwilling audience to a dialogue with the void. And the void, it seemed, was asking for a favor. Through the drunkard's slurred replies, a terrifying picture emerged. The invisible patron was a powerful, feared figure, someone with countless enemies. And now, one of those enemies was coming for him. The kicker, the enemy was someone the drunkard knew. Someone he liked. A kid, he called him, who was damn good at what he does. Can you feel the chilling irony? This isn't a random barfly. This is a man with a history. A man who has been saved and damned by the spectral figure in the chair. He speaks of his hometown being destroyed the last time I did you a solid. He's a man intimately acquainted with the catastrophic fallout of dealing with this entity. He knows the cost, and yet he agrees. He agrees to help form a team, a band of individuals presumably just as desperate or damned as he is to target this kid. Why? Out of a twisted sense of debt. You've saved my bacon plenty of times, he slurs, a statement that feels less like gratitude and more like a prisoner acknowledging his warden. There's a grim resignation in his tone. When the entity gets cranky, the drunkard notes its desperation with a sort of weary triumph. You want my help that bad? It's the only power he has left in this twisted relationship. The true horror of this scene isn't a ghost or a demon. It's the sobering clarity that cuts through the alcoholic haze. When the man finally stumbles out, he mutters a line that should send a shiver down the spine of anyone who knows our main story. Man, this sucks. But I owe him a lot, and the kid owes me. So if I have to pick sides, I guess this is how it's gonna be. This is the birth of an antagonist, not a cackling villain, but a reluctant, regretful one. A man making a cold, pragmatic, and utterly despicable choice because he's trapped in a web of old debts and older horrors. He's choosing the devil he knows over the kid he likes. This interlude is a masterclass in foreshadowing. It tells us that the man, God, is not just sitting idly by after his defeat in Asura. He's moving his pieces, recruiting from the dregs and the desperate. He's building his own party to counter Rudeus. And the most terrifying part, his new disciples aren't fanatics. They're broken men who know exactly what they're doing, and they're doing it anyway. The war for the future is no longer just about destiny and magic. It's also being fought in the dim light of seedy bars, paid for in copper coins and the last shreds of a man's soul. And as the door closes with the faint tinkle of a bell, we're left with the chilling certainty that for Rudeus Greyrat, the consequences of his past are now sobering up, forming a team, and coming for him. And that's the glorious chaotic mess of Volume 17. From Rudeus's brilliant moments of sheer idiocy to Ariel's political genius that puts everyone else to shame, this arc proves that the most dangerous weapon isn't magic, but a sharp mind and the willingness to do laundry for a terrified princess. What did you think of Asura's wild ride? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you haven't read it yet, what are you waiting for? The man, God's next pawn, is already sobering up.